Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's Anita Lambert, your holistic health physio, and Jesse Mendel, who's a prenatal and postpartum fitness coach from here near Calgary in Canada, but teaches and coaches women from all around the world. So thanks so much for joining us, Jess.
Thank you. I always love chatting with you, so I'm excited for this one.
Exercise intensity after birth. And so what we'll be talking about tonight will be applicable whether you gave birth recently, or even if you're pregnant and you're kind of planning ahead, or if your kids are, in their 20s and 30s. So it's something everyone can take away some good tips from. Also, if you're a health professional or fitness professional, I've had a lot contact me recently, and I know Jess, she'll be talking a bit more at the end, a really awesome postnatal academy she's put together to help train health professionals and fitness professionals to specifically work with women who've had children. So stay tuned to the end for a bit more about that. But what we'll be talking about during our session will be really helpful if you do work with postpartum clients. So please say hi if you're joining us. Let us know where you're from. And let us know too if you're a postpartum mom or if you're a health or fitness pro as well. So why don't we, before we kind of jump into things, Jess, if you want to share a bit more just about yourself and how you coach.
Okay, so hey everybody, this is one of my favorite things to do is to chat with Anita about pelvic health and exercise and fitness and health coaching. Love when we get to do these sessions, so I am excited to be on. And again, like Anita said, if you had any questions as we go through, definitely let us know. I live in Calgary, Alberta. It's snowing right now. This is not uncommon for us. Gosh, it's winter forever here, basically. So we live in Calgary, and I train moms all over the world in strength training based exercise, people who are pregnant at any stage during their pregnancy, postpartum, any stage postpartum, and some moms who are trying to conceive as well. I started in fitness coaching, doing in-person work for a million years, and just eventually started to transition a little bit more online over the course of the last 4 years, and then went fully online-based coaching before I had my daughter, who is 2 now, and wanted to be able to stay home with her, but also continue to run my business, to work with moms, to work with other health professionals, because it is such a passion project and is such meaningful work for me. So that is what I do now. My day revolves around 2-year-old things and working in this field of prenatal and postnatal health when she's sleeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love how if any of you are watching and don't follow Jess on social media, I highly recommend, whether Facebook or Instagram. Hi, Jill. Thanks for joining us. Definitely follow along, because Jess gives like the real deal, not just about like working with prenatal postpartum clients, but about motherhood and exercising with a toddler, which my little one is a few months younger than Jess's little one. So definitely lots of stories to share about getting through the day, but yeah, trying to get through even exercise with having a little toddler crawling all over you. So yeah. Awesome. So why don't we jump in? So something I wanted to bring up tonight that I love Jess has talked about before is talking about postpartum healing. She talks about the 4 R's. So I'll let Jess kind of start off with explaining what those are and why they're important for postpartum healing.
Absolutely. Can you just list them out for me? Because my mom brain cannot remember 4 things.
Totally. So we have rest, restore, rehab, and retrain.
Yes. Okay. Rest, restore, rehab, retrain. This is a blog I wrote, and I still can't remember them. This is something that I talk about with my mom constantly. This is mom brain in action. So this is basically how I program exercise and return to exercise for a lot of my postpartum moms, for all of them. It really does not matter to me so much if the birth was simple or textbook, or if someone is recovering easily, although I'm not sure it ever is easy in any event. But even if things are going very smooth postpartum, someone is looking to return to exercise, we still follow these principles of getting someone back to building a strong foundation, reconnecting with the abdominals, pelvic floor, learning how to manage pressure in the abdomen in this new postpartum body. Basically just allowing us to get back to this really solid level of function and then start gaining strength and then progressively loading in exercise from there. So again, these 4 R's, these are the principles that we follow in our training plans and also just in daily life activities too. So we're not jumping the gun. We're not going from 0 to 100 after that 6-week all clear checkup from someone's doctor. We're really taking the time to rebuild slowly. So we don't get stuck in this cycle of pain and injury for years and years postpartum.
And do you find, when do you end up starting to see clients come to you postpartum? Like how early do you find that they're seeking you out?
Yeah, so what is so incredible in the way that I work now is that I work with a lot of people through their pregnancies, hear about their birth stories, and then we're immediately into that postpartum phase. So my clients are day 1 postpartum and we're rebuilding back up from there. What I find with clients who are just coming into the program who weren't with us during pregnancy is there may be a few months out or they're a few years post. So if they're a few months postpartum, they're looking for exercise, programming, strategies to return to exercise safely. If they're a few years postpartum, I often find it is that they are stuck in this cycle of pain, injury. They're experiencing pelvic floor dysfunction, pelvic organ prolapse, and they're sick of being in that cycle and they want to start fresh and do something good for themselves.
And do you find that some of those clients that you see who've gone through that cycle, like when you start talking to them, because I know you debrief about birth, which I think is really important, and I love hearing that from a fitness professional as well. Start to happen after birth and they feel like, well, I'm just going to work out because they're just going to go away eventually. Like I'm not going to have to deal with them eventually, but they just actually don't go away. Like, do you find that's pretty common?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is, you know what, it's so interesting that you say that because we were having this conversation in my coaching group last night about postpartum sex and some of the advice that people were being told with pain and discomfort with postpartum sex was to have more sex and it will get better, to have more penetration and it will get better.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is the common advice that people are being told. And it's the same with exercise. Like if you're leaking during running, you've just started back, just keep doing it and it's going to go away. And it's just often not the situation.
No, I totally agree. And I feel like clients who kind of, we talked about who, have symptoms and then they keep going and then eventually they either find you or they find a pelvic physio and then eventually working together, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, just kind of re-educating what is the pelvic floor and core and find out how they're working for them. So for example, when you're talking about women who have pain with sex, it's that their pelvic floor is so tight and then they get told, go do Kegels just constantly, right? And that constant tightening just makes things worse, right? Or just doesn't go away. With that. So, and I'm glad you brought up about the 6-week postpartum visit, because I know we've chatted about that recently and I've had that chat with a lot of clients, and generally I'll actually talk to them about it in pregnancy and just let them know, at 6 weeks, you're very likely going to get the green light to exercise. I actually haven't met anyone who has not gotten the quote unquote green light. But then it's like, what does it really mean? So like, what does it mean to you, Jess, in terms of when you got the green light or when you have clients get the green light at 6 weeks?
So what I love with my clients in pregnancy is that, again, we have those conversations too. And then what we try to do, if they are interested and want to, on that early 6-week postpartum phase, is we actually get them moving before that point. So I think a big misconception is that we just don't do anything for 6 weeks, and that's totally fine. You do not have to do anything. But for some people, it just feels so much better physically, mentally, and emotionally to move a little bit, to do some structured stuff, whether it be some breathing, glute bridges, clamshells, some band rows, just to feel less creaky and stuck in your body and your mind too. So for a lot of my clients, we get moving before that 6-week checkup. I don't put a lot of weight into the 6-week checkup anymore. I encourage all my clients to be referred to pelvic health physio. And that's where my trust comes from in terms of their function postpartum. But that being said, my clients sometimes do return to workouts, strength training workouts, even before that 6-week mark too. So for myself, for example, at 4 weeks postpartum, post C-section, I got back into some workouts that don't really look like workouts. They're very much rehab-based, recovery-focused. And that's okay to do too. It's just that often what we see with this 6-week checkup in the all clear is people getting back into more intensity, more loading, more impact than their body might be able to optimally respond to at that time. So we have to live in the gray a little bit more, not think of it as do nothing or do all the things. There's so much we can do that's appropriate for the body at that stage.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I totally agree. And like seeing women for pelvic physio, going over what, so we won't do an internal for anyone who's watching. In terms of for pelvic physio, we tend to wait until after their 6-week check. So usually 7 weeks would be the earliest, but some women I have, like their midwife or doctor, purposely ask if they can come and do an internal sooner. And if they get the go ahead, then I'm totally fine with that, to check how that inner core canister is working. But I totally agree. I'll have women getting back to doing, like you call it the connection breath, right? Is it the connection? Yeah. Getting that core canister working, just getting their ribs stacked over their pelvis, understanding what that feels like in their new body. Once baby comes out, right? Center of gravity, everything just starts to shift literally overnight. Getting used to that and then bringing that core back in and doing exactly kind of squats, lunges, bridges. And then they're doing lifting all day, like carrying car seat. We've talked about that, right? Car seat strollers, they're not the lightest thing in the world. And then add a baby into it, right? So I definitely totally agree. And yeah, the 6-week green light, I'm with you. I really wish that it would be more like 6 weeks, you know, if you can go see a pelvic physio, get a check, see how you're doing, and then progress from there. But we still have a ways to go in terms of that. Yeah.
I know, unfortunate, but true.
Yeah. And I think also too important to bring up, and I've had this discussion recently, and it may be happening with women you see during pregnancy, like at 6 weeks, I have a lot of women that actually feel really amazing at 6 weeks. So then they're like, all right, I'm going to go back to volleyball. I'm going to go back to running. I feel amazing. And I have to be kind of the bad cop and say, I wouldn't recommend going back to something so high impact or so intense, right? Because there's still a lot of healing happening at that point, even if you feel amazing with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is such a key point to bring up, and something that is so difficult as a coach, fitness trainer, health professional is to rein people back in a little bit when they do have what Brianna Battles might refer to as athlete brain. And we love Brianna. She does such good work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be just so difficult working on the mindset piece of the puzzle, and then also getting them to understand physically what the body is still going through, what the body has gone through. The healing process is long, and it can be tough when people are feeling really great at that 6-week mark or even earlier. Had a question come in earlier in the week from someone who was 3-4 weeks postpartum. They had just ramped up the amount of time they were leisurely walking and started to have more pain. And sometimes we don't correspond those things because it's just walking. It's just strolling. But 3-4 weeks postpartum is still so early in the game. So we probably need to reduce slightly, even for something like walking.
Yeah. And I mean, we won't get so technical, but you know, talking to Anthony Lowe, if you talk to him about walking versus like any other, so Anthony Lowe is a physio in Australia who does a lot with prenatal postpartum health, and looking at the pressure in the abdomen with something like walking, there still can be a lot of pressure. So it is something I totally agree is like pacing and gradually building is so key with that. So yeah. And then how would you, so kind of postpartum, really any time, but if we're talking specifically about postpartum, like what does a good workout, how should it feel? Like how should it feel? And especially because there'll be different stages, right? So how do you really gauge what intensity is appropriate regardless of where you are in the healing process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it is fine to feel that you are physically challenged, to perhaps get a little bit breathless, sweat a little bit, and that can be more so as we get further out of that early postpartum stage when we know that the function of the pelvic floor is on point. But for my clients, what we talk about is feeling physically, mentally, emotionally whole and good. We have enough energy to parent. The workout never inhibits our ability to actually parent, which is so interesting to me when I see lots of posts about moms doing workouts that make them sore for days. It would not fly in my life anymore at all. Like, I hate being sore to the point where it just feels uncomfortable when I have to do all the daily life things. So that's not what we're striving for in postpartum workouts. We're not striving to be sore for days. We can feel like we did something, and that is totally good. We just want to ensure that the body feels strong and capable, that we feel good mentally, that we're not experiencing any shame or guilt around the workout or how intense it might not be. This is a conversation that I have a lot with my clients. So I think those are just the big things. And then just understanding our hormonal health on a basic level and what the body needs during this time as well. And knowing that exercise is a stress, even though it might feel stress relieving, it still is a stress on the body. And so we have to balance that with the rest of the life things that are happening postpartum.
There we go. Are you back on, Jess?
Yeah, there you go. Can you hear me?
Oh, I think Jess is frozen. If anyone's watching, if you can comment there, if it looks like Jess is frozen as well.
Nothing.
Oh,
Hello?
thanks, Tanya. You can see us both. Can you see
Can you hear me?
Jess at all, or is she frozen from your end? Thanks for your patience. We got some technical difficulties going on. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
Back?
You're back. Awesome. We were both a little frozen.
I can't see you, but totally fine.
You can't see me?
No.
Okay.
But don't test it.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We'll leave it. Yeah, Jill and Tanya, thank you both. So you can see us both. So I can do. So let's keep going with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of I forget where we left off.
So in terms of what a good like a good workout tends to feel like.
Okay, so just to recap from that, physically challenging is absolutely fine. A little bit sore, totally good. Feeling like the workout makes you feel energized and is enhancing your life in all areas. If it is not, then we have an issue. If you are too sore that it is impacting your life, and I'm talking from the perspective of general fitness, this is not if you're training for something. If you are an athlete, if this is your vocation and your livelihood, I'm talking about people like us who just want to exercise to feel good in their bodies.
And I love how you brought up before about hormonal health, because I am my newly postpartum moms. There's such a change in hormones, like right after birth, and whether like if you're nursing, sometimes it's called almost like a mini menopause. What happens with our estrogen, which can affect muscle tone and that as well. But just even whether you're nursing or not, it's a lot of giving and giving and giving and lack of sleep. So all these different things. And then if you want to go out and then do this crazy intense workout, your body isn't going to respond the same as when you have lots of sleep and your hormones are balanced and all that. Like, would you agree that that definitely affects?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I have been talking about recently quite a bit is that postpartum exercise coaching and programming is such an art and a science, because it's the science from the perspective of all the things we're talking about in terms of pelvic health and how the tissues are responding to load, things of that nature. But it's such an art in terms of we have to consider the rest of the life too. How much sleep are you getting? What's the lack of sleep situation? What is the stress level looking like? I mean, postpartum really can just throw your life on its head in terms of your whole being, your relationships, your career. It just can be a lot. And so that's why I think we really have to take in the whole life considerations with all the physical stuff that's going on too.
And then, so with that, and as women are kind of taking in that consideration, how do you coach your clients in terms of progressing load appropriately, like whatever stage they're at?
Yeah. So with my clients, we work in 4-week strength training phases. It does not look like a circus act, the kind of workouts that they are doing. We don't work from the perspective of muscle confusion or that the body needs tons of change. We work in 4-week phases. They do 2 different full body strength training workouts per week. Sometimes they do just 2. Sometimes they are doing a 3rd workout as well. And then sometimes they're doing a bit of interval training once they get a bit further out postpartum. But I like to have some consistency and repetition so we can see how the body is actually responding to the type of workouts that we are doing. And then we can progress from there. The reps and sets change a little bit through that 4-week phase, but the exercises stay the same. The reps and sets change so we can, again, keep that loading moving along. So we can lift a bit more weight, perhaps have a bit more resistance, or we're working with higher reps, so the weight's coming down. So we have a bit of variability, but we want to just see how the body is responding to that load we are putting on it before we make these major changes to the routine all the time.
And what would you say in terms of, like how you're saying, seeing how the body responds? So what would be like some negative things or maybe signs that you're like, okay, not ready to move on, versus things are like, okay, we're ready to progress from here?
Yeah, I love that. So signs that we might not be ready to move on: if we have pain cropping up, wherever that pain might be. A lot of times in strength training, we might see that come into lower back. We might see it in pelvic pain, whether that's in the front or the back of the pelvis. Shoulders, knees, ankles. If we have pain anywhere, we have to troubleshoot somewhere. So I don't want to take the loading up before we figure out that pain situation. And that can be coming from so many different angles, of course. In terms of, we look at sleep, we look at hunger, we look at energy, we look at cravings. These are kind of the biggies. So we look at physical, mental, and emotional health to see how someone is responding. So what I mean by that is your hunger level off the charts, Or is it kind of easy in your life to eat in this way that your energy is ramped up from the workout, and that can be a good thing? Are you feeling like you're having symptoms of thyroid issue? Because that can completely be related to the type of exercise and the programming that someone is doing as well. So just many different factors that will come into play. If someone is ready to progress, they are going to feel good in their body. They're going to feel pain-free. They're not going to feel super creaky in their joints. Hopefully they're sleeping as much as possible in their postpartum life. They feel like they're eating enough to sustain their energy requirements.
Yeah, no, I think that's all really good, because I think both postpartum moms, but then also fitness and health pros need those tips too, because it's not a no pain, no gain, pushing through pain. Like, it just, both of us have seen that just doesn't serve anyone. So being able to take a step back, modify, or just change the path of where they're going to get to their goal. And what would you say? I know you focus more on strength training, but I know in the past you've done running, and I know I've seen you doing more sprints lately in that. What would you say some tips about like progressing back to running kind of the smart way postpartum?
Yes. So we focus on strength training first and foremost. We move out of that core and floor restoration phase, we get back into strength training. And I like to see at least 8 to 12 weeks of consistent strength training before we go back to running. So if my clients are runners, they truly love to run, it is so good for their mental health, it's important in their life, then we try to get a good chunk of time of strength training consistently under their belt first. So I like to see 2 times a week of strength training for that 8 to 12 week period. And then we start back into more sprint type work. So whether that be on the treadmill or outside, totally fine. If we can get it on a bit of an incline to start with, that seems to be really nice for people, how they respond to it. So we start with some sprint work, short duration of the actual work period, and then a good chunk of rest time so they feel like they are fully recovered before they go back into that sprint. I don't love to start people out with just steady state running, even if it is, say, a run 1 minute, walk for 5. For whatever reasons, I don't think that people respond as well in terms of their pelvic health as they do with the more sprint style type of running program. So I'm talking like 10, 15 seconds of sprinting. This is not 30 seconds of sprinting. This is 10 to 15 seconds of fast running, and then 45, a minute of rest before we get back into things again. So we're pushing pretty hard. We would start this to be slower than a full-on sprint when people are first getting back to running. Absolutely. This is not 100%, but it's quick. It's a quicker pace, and we know that the duration is short. We rest for a long time, and then we progress from there, eventually back into slower pace and more steady state type work.
That's good. That's really good. And do you find, when would you say postpartum would be like the earliest? And I know it's a lot about, you do a great job connecting with pelvic health physios in the area or wherever your clients are. When would you say it tends to be the earliest that your clients are back running?
So if they're starting back to running anywhere within the 4 to 6 months postpartum range, that's early for my clients. And I think this is because I don't get a lot of people who love running, just from the nature of the coaching that I do. A lot of people are more interested in strength training. Some people like sprinting, but I don't have tons of runners that just love to run. That being said, when I do get them, if they start back between 4, 5, 6 months, that's pretty early. And for those people, they have been to pelvic health physio. They do absolutely just love to run, and it's really important in their life.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was curious to hear kind of what you end up seeing, because I would say early for me is 4 months with clients. And sometimes they're really surprised. They're like, what? Really? I got the 6 week, go ahead, I can't run. And they know to build back that strength, what the foundation they did during pregnancy, and it's worth it. Because I find it's just not worth going backwards, right? And having symptoms and then pushing it a little too far and then getting symptoms. So So yeah, I'm glad to hear you say you seem to see the same thing in terms of like 4 months is kind of like early on the early end.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so what would you say, even kind of talking to any fitness professionals or health professionals who are watching this, and it's also good for postpartum clients to know too, what would you say are some common mistakes or misconceptions or things that are happening in postnatal fitness classes or one-on-one coaching that you really want people to know, like maybe not, it's not the best idea to be doing?
You know what? I just think about what I was doing when I first started into this field 10 years ago. And some of that stuff is still happening, which is unfortunate. Some of that stuff being not enough baseline education on pelvic health. Not enough conversations being had with clients about pelvic floor dysfunction, pelvic organ prolapse, diastasis, pelvic pain. That stuff is still not happening in postnatal fitness. In classes that market to moms that specialize in postnatal fitness, these conversations are not being had in many cases. So that needs to change, absolutely, because we can't best help moms if we are not talking about pelvic health. It is just so intimately tied to their body and their experience in their lives. Second thing, the programming of the actual workouts themselves, and then the longer term phases when we're looking, say, at a macro cycle of training, it's lacking intention and purpose at times. And this is totally what I did too. The workouts were just thrown together to be as hard as they could be because I thought people just wanted to work hard. They wanted to sweat. They wanted to be sore the next day. And of course, since they were moms, they wanted to lose fat or they wanted to make their bodies and their bellies smaller. That's a really unfortunate mindset to go into programming workouts for moms, even if you believe that is what your clients want, because it can be dangerous and harmful. So the workouts themselves, there needs to be intention and purpose behind them in terms of the actual programming. What exercises are in the workouts? How are those exercises being paired? What strategies are you using in terms of alignment, breathing, connection to the pelvic floor to coach them? There's a lot of factors at play here. So those are biggies for me.
No, I definitely think that that's good and something to keep in mind, right? And we've talked about, and that's why, and we'll talk a little bit about your postnatal fitness specialist academy, because you made it because there was lacking in this knowledge in a lot of courses that are out there. So why don't you share a bit about the course, Jess?
Yes. So the Postnatal Fitness Specialist Academy was born a year ago. And it's just such a cool experience to watch it change and grow and get to work alongside these coaches that graduate from the program and then are off doing such incredible work for moms now. So the Academy is a 10-week online based course for fitness professionals, health professionals, and fitness enthusiasts. We've had lots of moms come through the course who are simply just interested for their own health, which I think is so cool. So we've had personal trainers, group fitness instructors, midwives, doulas, physios that specialize in pelvic health, which I'm always so honored to have people like you on board with this. So basically, we're just trying to arm these professionals and these students with as much education in terms of postnatal health topics to help moms feel as good as possible in their bodies and in turn, their lives.
Yeah, no, I think that's so key. And it's amazing. Like, I had so much fun guest lecturing in the course, and there's so many other amazing like fitness and health professionals and then guest lecturers. So, and especially this time around, right? In terms of there's some new ones coming up with topics that I love you're shedding a lot more light on that just aren't talked about with that. So what would be some of those topics that I think a lot of people wouldn't think would be in a course or don't see how it applies? And a good friend of mine who's a physio, I don't know, Dana, if you're watching, she did your course last year, and she said one of her big takeaways was about learning about body image, because she works with clients all the time. She's a physio, and she never thought about language and how we talk about it. And she's also a new mom, so taking that into it as well. So yeah, what would be some topics that you think people wouldn't assume would be in a postnatal fitness course?
Yeah, we're going into some different areas this session that I'm really excited for. One being a lecture with Erica Hart. If you're not following Erica on Instagram, you're going to become obsessed with her like I am. I heart Erica on Instagram. She, in week 1, which is starting next week, she's going to be talking about the decolonization of health, which is going to be incredibly interesting. Basically, just talking about how health and health care is not accessible to everyone. And we're going to talk about some reasons why and what groups of people health and healthcare is not as easily accessible to. Catrice Jackson is going to be talking about racism, mental health, and motherhood, which I cannot wait for. She is a brilliant woman. And if we are working with women of color and want to create spaces that are safe for women of color, this is going to be a key session as well. Who else? We have a session on postpartum mental health from Shannon Kane, who is a prenatal and postnatal counselor. We have a lot of good stuff. We're going to be talking with Brianna Battles about her second postpartum recovery that she's going through right now. She's working with Julie Wiebe in person, and they are healing her diastasis, which has been quite large after postpartum number 1, and then this time as well. And so we're going to get some info on what they've been doing and how it's healing up. So we have all the normal stuff you would think about in terms of postnatal fitness and health education in terms of the physical body, and then lots of other mental and emotional health aspects bringing in this time too.
And yeah, and that's why I think it's just so all encompassing, your course. That's generally how I explain it, because it really is. And I find the other thing too, if anyone watching who's a fitness or health professional, and you're not necessarily, your practice or your business isn't focused on postnatal clients, if you're working with clients who have given birth, you are working with the postpartum clients, whether you think of it that way or not, or want to kind of delve into that side. It doesn't matter. You're working with clients who have gone through birth and have all these changes happening to them. And it's really important, because that's our job, is to give them the most updated information to help them with physical, but also mental and emotional sides of things. So yeah, for anyone who wants more information, we have the link in the comments, and I'll make sure that it's down there and it's pinned. So anyone looking for more information on Jess's course, there's 2 options. Do you want to explain a bit about the 2 options, Jess?
Yes, I was just gonna say we gotta mention Anita in this a little bit more, because there are 2 options: a self-study and then a masterclass. So the self-study, you don't receive any additional coaching. You have all the materials, all the guest lectures that are pre-recorded and live lectures, and you go about the course at your own pace. In the masterclass, you can also go about the course at your own pace, but there is a private coaching group that Anita and I will be coaching privately. 25 students max. We want to keep the quality as high as possible. So in this group, there is a closed Facebook group, and we will be answering all the questions that come in from these students specifically, and then doing additional live streams in that closed Facebook group, and basically just working a little bit more one-on-one with the students in the masterclass.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you're watching or you're watching the replay after, if you have any questions, definitely put them in the comments. Jess and I will be sure to answer, and I'll make sure that you have the link to go check out the course as well, or just questions in general about postpartum fitness. Definitely let us know. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me, Jess. And thanks everyone for joining both of us tonight.
Thank you.